Over 1 million people will descend upon San Francisco, the host of Super Bowl City. My name is Alexandra O'Brien, and today I am sitting down with the former American football tight end Brent Jones to discuss his time in the NFL, his experience winning 3 Super Bowl rings, and what we can expect to see on February 7th, Super Bowl 50.
I've been born and raised right here in the Bay Area. Grew up in San Jose. Went to Leland High School. Loved playing sports as a kid growing up. My dad was a football coach. My dad was drafted by the Raiders the first year that they existed.
Oh, no way.
He got hurt. He was a quarterback at San Jose State. So I grew up obviously around sports, playing baseball, football, basketball, what have you. And, as a kid, you always dream of potentially playing in a professional sports league. I actually thought I was going to play baseball. That's really what I thought I was going to do. I was going to be a pro baseball player. Of course, that didn't work out very well for me. But I was fortunate to have the opportunity to go to college and play baseball and football at Santa Clara, right here locally. Yeah. And I decided to spend more of my time on the football realm of things, and ended up getting drafted in the NFL, which is spectacular. I played a half a year with the Pittsburgh Steelers and then 11 years with the San Francisco 49ers. So it's really been a great and exciting ride.
Now, speaking of that, I think a lot of people don't know that when you were drafted to the Steelers, you were in a serious car accident. When that happened, were you thinking, this is it, like, there goes the dream? What happened?
It's really amazing to think back. So a kid, and I didn't get into this, Allie, but I was second string in high school in football. So I still had an opportunity to play in college. They thought I had potential.
Quote unquote.
Yeah. And so somebody was right. And I had the opportunity to go to college and play. We were a Division II school at Santa Clara, but ended up being fortunate enough to make some All-America teams and then go to the combine, all the things that you see that's around the draft nowadays, and to actually get drafted on draft day. And to think that I had come from relatively nothing to getting drafted, and a few weeks after I got drafted, my lovely fiance, who is my wife, we got hit head on by a drunk driver a few houses away from where I lived. And to answer your question, I did say, you got to be kidding. I had a herniated disc in my neck. Oh. That could be the end of your career before it even starts. So I was really frustrated, upset. But you can't just sit and feel bad for yourself. You have to keep moving. So things ended up working out the long way.
Exactly. So who do you credit during that kind of questioning time to keep your resilience alive?
So literally, without my faith in God, I had no shot. God had brought me to the point of having an opportunity to have a career. And after the accident, to be honest, I questioned God, like how could I get to this point and have all these things happen? But what I didn't realize, and a lot of times as Christians we don't necessarily realize it, that God had a greater plan. And sometimes you don't know that plan right away. You don't see the 360-degree view of what that plan was, and just feeling the frustration and the lack of communication in Pittsburgh and being put on the injured list, and then them saying, hey, we're going to be patient with you and wait till next year, and then a month into the season, hey, we don't want you anymore, we're releasing you. And you think, is this dream going to go unfulfilled? But stepping back and looking at God's perfect plan, he was bringing me right back home to play for a team that, certainly your childhood team, and to play with the one of the greatest teams of all time, and have all of your family, your in-laws, your parents, your aunts, your uncles, your friends, my grandparents, to be able to experience that in your career is really a special thing.
Speaking of careers, now let's fast forward. 12 seasons in the NFL, 4-time Pro Bowler, named All-Pro 3 times, and you have 3 Super Bowl titles to your name. Is that all correct?
That's a lot. That's a lot of info. Yes, you did some great research there.
What would be one word to describe all of those accomplishments? Just one word. What would you say?
I think the word I would use is blessing. It's miraculous when you think about it, and so many guys get a chance to maybe even get to the level of having a shot to play, but to play for a team that was so successful in your own backyard, and just the relationships and the people that you got to know, and just the platform that football gave me was pretty spectacular.
Of all the Super Bowls that you were a part of, which one has the most meaning to you and why?
So they all have real different and distinct feelings and meanings. But the first one, because as a kid, you see the locker room, you see the joy, you see the jubilation of the winning team, and you get so close. In my very first Super Bowl, we were losing with a couple minutes left. We were playing in Miami. The Cincinnati Bengals were ahead, and then Joe Montana commandeered that 92-yard drive, and we scored a touchdown with 20 seconds left. That basically meant we were going to win the game, and just the elation and just a dream fulfilled, and to know that you're part of winning something that was so significant in terms of your sport. To think about getting a Super Bowl ring. So that first one, because you never really know that you're going to get there and actually win. And so that one was probably the most special.
Do you ever go back and kind of like relive it? Like, can you like picture yourself back on that field?
I can. I can. I get goosebumps actually thinking about it, just because of the time, the fact that you while you think that you put on all these years of work, you're still I was 25 or 26 years old. You're still relatively young, and you have no idea how hard it is to get there, and just the great blessing that it is to be a part of something like that. And so to experience it a few more times was even more amazing. And so it was quite a run for those years with the San Francisco 49ers.
Through this entire process, so since your first Super Bowl win at 25-26 to right now, what do you think God has shown you through this entire journey?
You know what? I think God has shown me to be consistent in my walk. And I think that understanding that He loves us and has a plan for our life is really at the core so important to understand, because we all deal with adversity in our lives and situations that are really tough, that are gut-wrenching. But God calls us to stay in His Word and draw near to Him. And we all can experience that great plan that He has for our lives if we just stay consistent and stay.
Okay, so it's Super Bowl 50 here in our hometown of San Francisco. What's it like to be a part of all of these events?
Boy, it's still really fun, Allie. You never really get tired of coming back to the side of the Super Bowl. You see current players who obviously, for the most part, don't know who you are, but a lot of the old time guys and a lot of the guys that you played with, there's a real camaraderie playing in the game, and I think that the closest thing that I like in it too is the military. Now, it's not life and death, but you go through something that's really tough. There's a lot of pressure, and I think guys have a genuine affinity for each other years after the fact, and there's a lot of respect, and it's great kind of gathering with the old guys and telling old stories and running into them, and so it's a lot of fun, and certainly the excitement about having Super Bowl here in the Bay Area is really something special. So it's great just to take part in multiple events and seeing a lot of people. It's really neat. So
this is actually a random question. It's totally off script. So when you see old team members or other team members on other teams, do you guys actually talk about like old plays that you did or like old games from years ago? Like what is the conversation?
It's funny because you immediately flash back, and if it's a guy that you played against, you talk about the last time we did this, or yeah, remember when you dropped that pass, or we say little things, and it's weird. Of course I can't remember what I did last week, but I can remember a game from 23 years ago, and
awesome.
and there's always a camaraderie, whether you're the guys that it's not as bitter rivals now. It's just, hey, we're fortunate, we're all a little bit older, and we just harken back to some laughs, some memories, and whether it was talking about certain coaches or players or different situations, it's always nice to connect and see. Everybody has a different network of guys that they stay in touch with. So you see somebody from the Cowboys, Michael Irvin, I'll talk to him. I'll say, hey, what's going on with Jay Novacek or Troy? I hadn't seen him lately, or and so everybody kind of keep a little eye on. So it's fun. It's still special after all these years.
Well, let's talk a little analysis of football strategy. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So we are now seeing a popularity shift from everybody loving the 30-year-old something QBs, right? And now we're kind of seeing that change to everybody loving the 20-year-old quarterbacks. Do you see that between the two quarterbacks who have been in the Super Bowl?
Well, yeah, we have the most dynamic range of one of the all-time greats. Almost an old timer, I would describe him as a for sure Hall of Famer, one of the top quarterbacks to ever play the game, against the young upstart, very dynamic with his running style, his passing, just his speed, his athleticism, and it's remarkable to compare the two. So was Peyton Manning ever Cam Newton from a running and physical standpoint and speed and athleticism? No. But he's one of the all-time great, most accurate passers. And so we're talking about different attributes, but it is interesting to see everybody's always looking for the next guy, right?
Exactly.
It's the next great thing. And we want to make this guy one of the greatest, and we want to enshrine him, although it's still relatively early in Cam's ascension. And so certainly a Super Bowl puts you in rarefied air, so to speak, from a quarterback's perspective. So that's going to be a real big deal for him if the Panthers can win, because it'll put him at a very lofty level. And quarterbacks with great teams and all pros are eventually judged on how many Super Bowls they've won. And so that's an important thing. And Peyton's been there a few times. He's won one. And so this is an important one for him as well. Cam's young. He has he thinks he knows, but he doesn't really know, because he's still just a young guy running around, having the time of his life.
Right.
But as you get older, you put those things in perspective. So I think my guess is Peyton is smelling the roses, is obviously really focused on the game, but probably is a little introspective this week. And Cam's just going about business like, woohoo, we're the greatest team. We have one loss. I'm the man. And we're going to go out and win this game. But it's a lot tougher to win the Super Bowl than probably they imagine. There's a lot of pressure, things that are going to be, hey, you get a little fire engine. There you go. So it's just an example of you never really know what's going to happen.
Exactly. Should we say that statement one more time? Exactly. Because it's the background.
Or we can just cut out the fire engine.
Yeah, exactly. So you won your first Super Bowl at 26 years old. Your second at 27. And your third at 32. So now the Panthers and the Broncos combined have 46 players under the age of 26 playing. What's your advice for these young kids?
My advice for the young kids is whatever you do, don't get caught up in the hype. There's so much hype. Don't watch TV. There's so much hype around the game. And the more that you kind of get distracted by that, you lose kind of your focus on what you should be doing. You should just be attacking it like it's any other week. And it's funny because in the Super Bowls that I played in, we were always sequestered. And so you never really got an idea about Super Bowl City and these parties and all this stuff. You knew that they existed. But if you take time to start following that or focusing or watching the news and all this stuff, what you do is it becomes a distraction. And then there's also a realization that, hey, 150 million people are going to be watching you on TV, and it's all the pressure, and it's win. There's nobody remembers second place in this game, so there's a lot of outside pressures. And so I think for the young guys, if you just stay focused, stay in your playbook, watch film, hang out with your buddies, and pretend like it's just any other game, that will help you a tremendous amount, because I think the older you get, you realize the seriousness of the situation.
Exactly. And I think once you realize how much pressure actually is on, it's kind of a game changer.
Yes. You don't want to be the guy that's remembered the rest of his life for the guy that missed the kick, dropped the ball, fumbled the ball, because a lot of those things, whether you like it or not, they stay with you. And it's sad. Yes. Yeah. That's right.
Sounds like Wikipedia for a long time.
There you go.
What would you say are 3 attributes that all winning teams have?
Well, I think first and foremost, the team dynamic is important. Playing together as a team is so instrumental, I think, in the success of teams. And now there's varying levels. Obviously, there's guys that are your all pros and great players. But sometimes the guys that don't get enough credit, the offensive linemen, the defensive linemen, those guys that are really struggling and fighting in the trenches, you have to have a really cohesive unit and play together as a team. That's number one. Number two, I think culture. Culture in the locker room. You've got to have a closeness. Teams that win Super Bowls, teams that win World Series or NBA championships, there is a real genuine love and respect. It doesn't mean every guy needs to be your best friend. It doesn't mean you need to hang out with everybody, but there's really a culture of closeness that formulates in locker rooms. And there's a lot of teams that have, quote, great talent, big name superstars, but they can't pull it together because their egos are so big. They don't have any humility. They don't respect the other players. They don't put themselves in each other's shoes. And so culture is a huge thing. And then I think one of the other great attributes is a respect and probably reverence for the coaching staff. It's funny because nowadays I don't know that everybody thinks like that, but when I grew up, a coach was an authority figure. Exactly. And I had some of the all-time greatest coaches, head coaches Bill Walsh and George Seifert, but my offensive coordinators were, actually I missed a head coach. My last one was Steve Mariucci, who's just a dear and great guy. But my offensive coordinators were Mike Holmgren and Mike Shanahan, Denny Green before that, Mark Trestman, guys that are spectacular coaches. And in the end, there's so many things that are going on in the NFL today, so much money out there. And I think the teams that give respect to their coaching staff, to understand that they're putting them in position as players to be successful, I think have a much greater chance to be successful in the field.
Do you think playing football in college now there's too much glory to it, if that makes sense?
So it's funny. I think there is more and more glory in college, and a big part of that was ESPN. I mean, ESPN didn't exist practically when I was playing college, and they didn't have certainly college football at the time. But now there's all these cable networks, so almost every college game is on TV, and so a lot of these college kids have become, quote, famous throughout the course of television, because of the internet, because of all these opportunities for media, and obviously there's positives to that, but I think getting too much too soon. When I grew up, there was 1 or 2 college games on TV a week. There was no internet, and so you were in relative obscurity, and I think sometimes staying under the radar is a better thing, especially for young men playing sports.
So the two teams that are playing here this Sunday, Panthers and Broncos, I feel like if you're either a Broncos fan, you're Broncos 100%. If you're Panthers, 100%. There's no wavering. What do you think fans are going to be able? What should they expect from this game?
Well, the funny thing is that the fans won't be aware of, because neither of these teams have been in a Super Bowl for a while, is the fans going to the game won't have much, quote, advantage. There's going to be probably, I don't know, 5 or 10,000 Bronco fans, 5 or 10,000 Panther fans, and then there's going to be 50,000 corporate seats and people that are just there for the experience, right? Hey, this is cool. I'm at a Super Bowl. I just want to see a good game, or hey, I want to see good replays.
I'm down for the hot dogs.
That's right. Hey, show us some celebrities on the Jumbotron. Yeah. And so it's a weird feeling playing in the Super Bowl, because both of these teams are used to rabid fans. Stadium so loud when you're introduced you can't hear yourself think. Excitement when your team's doing well. And there's a general, I don't want to say quietness, but much, much less rowdy Super Bowl fan, other than the handful of serious team fans, like you said. Just going back, the games are great. The playoffs, all the things that come with playing professional Super Bowl or professional football, the Super Bowls. But in the end, when you remember back, it's about the relationships with your coaches, with your teammates. And so sometimes you think, gosh, I wish I really would have gotten to know that guy better, or that guy, I really like that guy. We had a Bible study with the 49ers. It was great. We had, probably 6 or 7. Maybe one year we had 8 or 9 guys. Interestingly enough, we had several guys become Christians after their careers, and they talked about the influence that some of the guys in the locker room had on them. And it's like, man, I wish we could go back again. Or I wish you guys could be involved in our small group or in some of the things that we did. And so
it's so awesome.
It's a pretty
funny
neat.
You say that because I actually interviewed a player for the Raiders, a couple weeks ago, and he said to me, he's like, no, I came from a small hometown, went to a small high school, went to a small college. He goes, and then I didn't realize that after playing one season, he goes, half of my friends were gone. And he goes, I wish looking back, I would have spent more time with them, right? Had picked them up to do workouts with. And he goes, no, we're so busy that, we try to text each other, but that relationship now has kind of fizzled. So it's interesting that you say that. If you're the second person to tell me that.
Yeah, it's a really interesting dynamic. And so you think back and you have respect and appreciation and admiration for all the guys that played. I mean, it's a darn tough dog-eat-dog world, and people are fighting for these spots. And then it's like guys just disappear. And in my mind, it's like, what do you mean so-and-so?
Good. We can go? Okay. Welcome back. Okay, so let's talk NFL future. But before we get there, I kind of want to discuss the role of a tight end. So for those of us who may not know what each position entails, tell me more. What is a tight end? What is your job? And what are you trying to accomplish?
Okay. Well, the term tight end actually comes from the fact that you're in tight to the line of scrimmage, right? So you're an end. Theoretically, an end means you're an eligible receiver. And so back in the old days, you used to call a wide end or a split end were wide receivers, and a tight end would be an eligible receiver in close to the line. And so you're at the line of scrimmage with all the big hogs, with all the big, I want to say fat guys, but they're the heavy guys, we'll say that, exactly. And so tight ends in the league are really a very versatile type of player, because you're called on to not only block these big monsters when it's a running play, but you're also called on to be a receiver when it's a passing play. And so you got to work on your pass routes. You got to be able to catch the ball. And the teams that the tight ends actually that get highlighted the most really are the ones that are more receivers, right? There's more glory in the skill position in catching the ball and scoring touchdowns. And so I came from the world of being a wide receiver in college, and a little bit of tight end to a tight end in the NFL. So I liked catching the ball more than blocking, and it was a lot safer, I think. So that's really, and the position has evolved to now. It used to be more of a hybrid position. Now the best tight ends are receivers, probably 80% of the time.
Oh, interesting. So what do you think Greg Olsen and Owen Daniels need to do to help secure their team's victory?
Well, it's funny you mentioned those guys, because I actually think they're both going to have a big impact on the game, because there's so much focus on the other positions, on the receivers, on the running backs, and both of these guys are outstanding the way that they run their pass routes, their ability to get open, and I just kind of feel like there's and sometimes you just have a feeling, I kind of feel like Greg Olsen's going to be the game changer for this game. He's a real good, and I kind of, interestingly enough, I kind of had a feeling last week that it was going to be Owen Daniels. I was watching the Broncos game, and he was, and I was right about it. And it's just, it's a tight end thing. We have this special perception, but there is so much focus on the other positions for both of these teams that sometimes the tight ends get lost in the shuffle. And I think just the way that these defenses play, their style of defense, the tight ends could both have big days. So I'm looking forward to both those guys doing something special on Sunday.
Interesting. So when you watch the game, do you watch just your position? Like, I know some football players, when they are watching a game, they just kind of watch their position and watch what that teammate or whatever that guy is doing. Are you kind of the same way, or do you just watch the whole game?
So, you know what, Allie, I'm more ADD in my approach to to watching the game. Sometimes I'll watch the tight end if it's a specific, or sometimes I key in on a defensive guy and say like Von Miller from the Broncos. He is spectacular. Sometimes I'll just watch him and say, are they going to be able to block him? Or sometimes I'll watch the quarterback. A lot of times I'll watch the quarterback, and the receivers are usually out of the screen once the start of the play happens. And so a lot of times you watch the line playing the quarterback or kind of what's going on there. So I'm kind of all over the board, and certain times I'll focus on certain things, and it's really interesting. One of the things that I really want to watch, and it's funny, it's just as an aside, but the blind side tackle Michael Orr is playing in this game.
Know.
And so I heard his family's out here in San Francisco, and they're all around, and I mean, we love that family.
Second Super Bowl?
Yeah, I think it is. I think he played one with the Ravens.
Yeah.
And so I heard his family's in the Bay Area and going to be out here, and watching the movie with my wife and daughters, and everybody knows who this guy is, and so to kind of offensive linemen are a lot of times unknown, but it'll be interesting to kind of watch him, and he's going to have a big job against this Broncos defense. Some of those guys are great pass rushers, so I might focus on him a couple times and say, "Come on, Michael," just like his mom and dad used to say in the movie. Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. What do you think the NFL is going to look like in 10, 15 years?
So
How's it going to change?
it's interesting because it's slowly started to change since you were a little girl and I played. I think that it's always been a very vicious, violent game, and for the most part, guys have been pretty protected, but we're hearing more and more about concussions, and so they implemented rules a few years ago about helmets to helmets. I think in 10 to 15 years, I think the league is going to realize its most important position is the quarterback. One of the toughest things is the quarterback taking hits, getting injured, knocked out of the games, and a lot of that comes from blitzing. We hear about teams and all their blitzes and all the things that they do. I think that in the next 5 to 10 years, the league is going to limit the amount of players that can rush the quarterback, because they want to keep those guys are the lifeblood. They're the superstars, and they want to keep them upright and healthy. And so the only way that you can really do that is by limiting that. And so at least it gives them a fighting chance. We saw Tom Brady last week take so many hits, more than he's ever taken in his life, and that's
And you can see
something.
it affect him too.
Yes, and the league does not. You don't want your all-stars taking hits, and it really is a quarterback-driven league, and so they got to find more ways to protect those guys. So I think there's been a real focus over the last 5 years on player safety, where when I played, obviously you can tell, nobody cared. It's like, so what happened? We don't care what happens to these guys. So exactly, whatever. Let them get hit, knocked out. Oh, concussion, that's too bad.
Right.
And so that has changed, and I think it's for a good of the game, and it's good for players' health.
Yeah. So, after your career in the NFL, you're reporting for various sports networks. You became involved in numerous charities and nonprofits, and then you started your own business. What's next for you? What can we see?
Ooh, so it's fun. Broadcasting, as you know, is challenging. It's fun. It's exciting. It's invigorating. You do such a great job, and that was fun for me. But doing games themselves, what I realized after 7 or 8 years was, you'd go, you'd broadcast the games, and you'd be all excited, but you never won. You never lost. You just broadcast the game, and so it was a little less fulfilling.
Right.
Started an investment business. That was an awful lot of fun. I've been doing that for 16 years now, and I kind of feel like it's been great.
Yeah.
And I enjoy it. And I enjoy the people.
Right.
And so for the short term, I'm doing that. In the future, my youngest daughter's getting married. I love spending time with my lovely wife, and so I'd probably like to work a little less, do a little bit more on the charitable side of things, and really kind of focus on this being the second half of my life, and go from try to go from success to significance, do some things that have lasting godly legacy.
Well, I'm excited to watch. Well, any predictions for Sunday?
Well,
What can you say, if you're allowed to.
if I absolutely had to say,
Give me a score.
okay. If I had to say, I'd say the Panthers 31 and the Broncos 20. And I want the old timer Peyton Manning, such a great guy, such a legend. I really want him to win. I just don't know if they have all the weapons that Carolina has right now on both sides of the ball. And so, believe it or not, rooting for the Broncos.
Thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you next time.